My name is Noah. I am 16 years old, and I live with my mom in a small house. We don't have much, just a kitchen, a bed, and some old photos on the wall. My father died when I was 9. He was sick, he was quiet, and then he was gone. He left us with memories, with his smile, and with many bills we could not pay. My mom's name is Lena. She works at a school, cleaning floors, windows, and toilets. She leaves the house every morning at 6, before the sun, before the birds. She comes home tired, her hands rough, her eyes red, but she never complains. She smiles at me, cooks something small, and asks, "How was your day, Noah?" I know she suffers. I know she hides her pain. I see in the way she walks. Every shirt I wear, every notebook I use, every piece of bread I eat. All of it comes from her hard work, her quiet tears, her strong will to survive. So, I made a promise to myself to never waste what she gives me. Not even a second at school. I'm not like the other kids. I don't have new shoes or a cool phone. My clothes don't fit right. My bag has a broken strap. My lunch is always the same. But I don't care. I don't go to school to show off. I go to learn, to dream, to grow. Still, they laugh at me. They whisper, they point. They act like I don't belong. Sometimes they say, "Did your mom clean 10 bathrooms just to buy that pen?" Or they laugh and say, "You want to study engineering? You can't even afford socks." I smile sometimes. I ignore them. I act strong. But the truth is, I cry alone. At night, in my small room with the light off, I wipe my tears with my sleeve. After school, I don't play games. I don't relax. I go to work right away. I deliver food. I clean a small shop. I carry boxes. I sweep the floor. Then I go home at 9, eat with my mom, and open my books in silence. I study until midnight. Sometimes later, even when I can barely keep my eyes open, my mom always says, "Noah, sleep early. You need to take care of yourself." But I just smile and say I want a degree so you can stop holding that mop. She laughs softly, touches my hair, and says, "You're my greatest gift." And in that moment, I feel like the richest boy in the world, even if I have nothing. In my final year of high school, I signed up for a big national math competition. My teacher looked surprised. He said, "Noah, this is tough, very tough. There are kids with tutors, with smart gadgets, with rich schools and help." I smiled and said, "They don't have my mother. That's all I need." So, I studied harder than ever before. Every morning, every night, every free moment. I solved problems while eating, while walking, even during lunch breaks. I wrote formulas on napkins, memorized patterns, repeated steps out loud. I had no calculator, no internet, no private teacher, only my will. The day of the exam came, cold and cloudy, and I was nervous and quiet. I wore my old shoes, my thin jacket, and took the bus with shaking hands. I entered the hall, big and bright, filled with confident faces and shiny watches. But I sat down, closed my eyes, took a breath, and said, "Do it for her." I wrote and wrote for hours and hours, not stopping, not looking around. When it was over, I was exhausted, dizzy but full of something new. Hope. Weeks passed, and I waited. Working, studying, helping, never forgetting my goal. Then one day I came home and saw my mom standing with a letter in her hand. She looked at me, eyes wide, and said, "You won, Noah. First place in the whole city." I dropped my bag. I stood frozen. I couldn't speak. I couldn't believe it. She hugged me tight, crying, laughing, shaking, and saying, "You did it, my son." I closed my eyes, whispered thank you, not just to her, but to God, to life. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat near the window, looked at the stars, and thought. I thought of all the times I wanted to give up, all the names they called me. I thought of the cold nights, the hunger, the broken things, the long walks. But I also thought of my mom's smile, my dad's memory, my own belief. This was just the beginning, just one step. But it changed everything. People started noticing teachers, students, even strangers on the street. They said, "We're proud of you, Noah." And for the first time, I believed them. I was no longer invisible, no longer just the poor kid with the torn shirt. After I won the competition, people started to see me differently. They stopped laughing. Some students came to me and said, "Sorry, Noah, we were wrong." But I stayed silent because I remembered every joke, every whisper, every cold look they gave me. But I also knew they didn't understand. They never walked in my old shoes. The school gave me a small award, a paper, a handshake, a few kind words. My photo was on the wall next to students from rich families with perfect clothes. But I still wore the same shoes, the same jacket, still took the same long walk home. Nothing changed for me at home except the fire in my heart. It burned brighter. I started dreaming bigger, not just about university, but about building something. Something that could change lives. Something that could help kids like me. Kids who are smart but hungry, tired but full of dreams, poor but full of gold inside. I wanted to prove that success doesn't belong to the rich. It belongs to the brave. Every evening, I worked in the same shop, cleaning shelves, delivering bags, smiling. People started recognizing me. "You're that smart boy Noah from the TV, right?" I would nod, say, "Yes, that's me." And they'd smile, proud but surprised. They didn't expect the smart boy to still be working, still be tired, still be hungry. My mom kept working too. She never stopped, never asked for rest, never slowed down. She said, "As long as you dream, I will work." And I said, "As long as you work, I will fly." We were a team, a small one, a tired one, but we believed in each other completely. I watched her hands, how rough they were, and I promised I'd change her life. Then came the big day, a scholarship offers from a top university in the capital. They said full ride, everything paid. All you need to do is keep working hard. I showed the letter to my mom. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She just hugged me tight and said, "Go make your name, Noah, make it shine." Leaving home was hard, very hard. I had never slept away from her, not even once. We packed my things in an old bag, one change of clothes, a notebook, a dream. She gave me a little money, kissed my head, and said, "Call me every night." okay? I nodded, held back tears, and stepped on the bus that would take me to a new world. The city was loud, fast, full of lights, cars, noise, and people who didn't smile. Everyone was busy, walking fast, talking fast, living fast. I felt very small. My room was tiny, shared with 3 other boys, but I didn't care. I had a bed. The food was different. The faces were new, but my dream was the same. At university, I felt out of place at first, like I didn't belong, like I was a mistake. The students spoke with big words, wore expensive clothes, and talked about trips. I didn't understand half the things they said, didn't own what they owned. But I listened, I learned, I kept quiet, and I worked harder than anyone. I spent hours in the library, reading, writing, solving, pushing myself beyond the limit. When others went out, I stayed in, studied, practiced, worked on my ideas. Some called me boring. Some said I had no life. Some didn't even see me. But I wasn't there to be seen. I was there to grow, to build, to win. My grades were perfect. Professors started noticing, asking, "Where are you from?" And when I said from a poor neighborhood, raised by a cleaner, they paused. Some smiled, some looked surprised, some didn't know what to say. But I saw respect in their eyes, and that gave me more power than anything else. One day I got an idea, small at first, just a thought. What if I started something? A project for students like me, for kids who had brains, but no money, no support. I called it Smart and Poor. 2 words that describe my whole life. I started with free online lessons, then mentorship calls, then small local workshops. The project grew slowly, then faster, then bigger, and soon students were messaging me. They said, "Noah, you gave me hope," or I thought I was alone. But now I believe. I replied to every message, sometimes crying, sometimes smiling, always thankful because I knew what it meant to be alone, to be laughed at, to feel invisible. In my final year at university, I built an app. Simple, free, made for poor students. It had lessons, tips, motivation, and a place to share struggles without fear. I didn't have much money, but I had friends who believed in me, and we built it together. It was hard, many nights with no sleep, but every message from a student kept me going. After graduation, I didn't take a big job at a fancy company, even though I could. Instead, I took a risk. I started a small tech company with a clear goal in mind, to hire people like me, to build tools for education, to lift others like I was lifted. It was slow at first. We had one desk, one old laptop, and one huge dream. My mom was still working, still cleaning, still waking up at 6 every day. I saved money little by little, and one morning I bought her a new dress. It was the first time in 10 years she wore something new and she looked beautiful. She cried when I gave it to her, not because of the dress, but because she saw the change. And I told her, "You will never clean again." Now one more day, and I meant it. She stopped working, rested for the first time, smiled without pain, walked with pride. Our small house stayed the same, but felt different, warmer, brighter, happier. And every night we sat together, talked, laughed, and remembered how far we came. Life started to move fast, but I moved with it, holding on to my dream with both hands. Every day was a lesson. Every mistake was a teacher, and I listened with all my heart. Running a small company was hard, harder than school, harder than being poor. But I remember my mother's tired face, and that memory gave me strength to keep going. I hired 2 friends from my class. Both of them came from poor families like mine. They didn't have much experience, but they had fire, they had hunger, they had heart. We worked from a small room with second-hand desks, a slow internet connection, and hope. Every morning, we said, let's build something that matters. And every night, we kept building. We started by helping schools in poor areas. Free software, free training, free support. At first, only a few schools said yes. Most said we don't have time, or maybe later, but one principal gave us a chance, and that was all we needed. A single open door. We worked day and night, fixed every bug, improved every tool, and gave our best. That school saw results. Students were more active, more curious, more confident. Teachers were happy. Parents were thankful. And the school shared our name online. Suddenly, we were not invisible anymore. We started getting calls, emails, messages. People asked, "Who are you? Where did you come from? Can you help us too?" We didn't have money for marketing, but we had stories, real stories, and people listened. I told them about my mom, about our small home, about studying under a weak light. I told them I never had new shoes, never had lunch money, but I had a big dream, and they believed me. Not because I was special, but because I was honest. Soon we got invited to speak at events. Me, a boy from a poor ST, on a big stage. I wore my best shirt, still a bit old, but clean and ironed with love by my mom. I stood in front of hundreds of people, some rich, some powerful, some famous. My hands shook, my voice cracked, but my heart was calm. I had something to say. I said, talent is everywhere, but chances are not. Dreams are free, but doors are locked. I told them how I studied on the floor, how I worked after school, how I cried in silence. I said every child has light inside, but some just need someone to see it. And when I looked up, I saw eyes full of tears, people clapping, people standing. After that, things grew fast. We got donations, support, media attention, and more schools. But we stayed the same inside. Humble, focused, hungry, grateful. We opened a second office in another poor area, hired 10 more students, trained them. We gave them not just jobs, but hope, belief, and a reason to wake up with pride. One day a big company called us, a famous one, rich and successful. They said, "We love your story. We want to buy your app, your team, your idea." They offered money, a lot of it, more than I ever dreamed of in my whole life. I thanked them, smiled, and said, "No, this is not for sale. This is for the kids." They didn't understand. They thought I was foolish, but I didn't care about the money. I cared about the mission, about the promise I made to my younger self, that I would never let another smart boy cry alone because he had nothing. that I would build a world where dreams didn't depend on money or last names. My mom was proud, always proud, but she never bragged, never showed off. She still wore simple clothes, still cooked the same food, still smiled the same way. I told her once, Mom, you're the reason I became someone. And she laughed. She said, no, Noah, you were always someone. You just needed time to prove it. Years passed. Our work reached more towns, more students, more forgotten corners. We built libraries, gave away tablets, trained teachers, gave scholarships, and more. I met kids who reminded me of me, thin, quiet, scared, but full of fire. And I told them, I believe in you, even if no one else does. You can do it, one boy said. But I'm poor, and I looked at him and said, so was I. He smiled small at first, then big, and I knew I had lit a spark inside him. That's what I live for. Not the money, not the fame, but the spark, because one spark can start a fire, and one fire can change the world. We created a small network, called it Dream Chain, because dreams should connect. Students helped students, graduates mentored new ones, and the circle kept growing. We shared books, time, ideas, stories, tears, and dreams, and that was our treasure. We had nothing at first, but now we had each other, and that was everything. At night, I still called my mom, even after all the years, just to say good night. She said I sleep better when I hear your voice. And I told me too, Mom. Sometimes I'd tell her about a new student we helped, and she'd smile quietly. She didn't need much, just peace, just love, just knowing her son kept his promise. Years passed, seasons changed, and I grew older, but some things never changed. I still remembered where I came from, still walked in the same ST. Sometimes people greeted me, called me sir, but I never saw myself that way. I was still Noah, the boy with second-hand shoes and big dreams in his heart. Sometimes I went back to my old school, stood outside the same broken gate. I watched the students play, laugh, run, and I remembered when I was one of them. I saw myself in their eyes, the fear, the hope, the hunger for something more, and I felt a soft pain, mixed with pride deep in my chest. One teacher came to me and said, "You make us proud. The kids talk about you." I smiled and said, "Tell them I'm just like them. They can be more than me." I visited the classroom where I sat in the last row, quiet, afraid to speak. Now I stood in front of the class, and every chair was facing me. I told them my story. Not the perfect version, not the proud one, but the real one. I told them about the nights I cried, about the days I walked with empty pockets. I told them I almost gave up many times, but something inside me said, keep going. And I looked at each of them and spoke. You have that voice too. Listen to it. After the visit, a small boy came running to me, holding a notebook and a pen. He spoke. Can you sign it, please? My mom says you're a real hero. I knelt down, looked at his eyes, and said, your mom is the real hero, not me. He nodded slowly, then hugged me, and I felt my heart melt. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat near the window, thinking about everything. The past, the future, the people I lost, the people I saved, the people still waiting. I thought about my father, his hands, his voice, the way he looked at me. I wished he had seen all this. Wished he could see the man I became. But maybe he knew. Maybe he was watching in silence, proud from afar. I closed my eyes and whispered, "I hope I made you proud, Dad. I really do." The stars looked brighter that night, like they were blinking just for me. And I felt peace, a rare kind of peace, soft and deep. The company grew bigger, but we never stopped being small inside. We kept working with poor schools, small towns, and kids with no voice. We opened training centers, free workshops, online platforms, all for free. People asked why free, and I spoke. Because someone once gave me a chance, I met other young people full of energy, ideas, and crazy dreams. Some wanted to write books, others to build robots or become doctors. Most of them were poor, invisible to the world, but not to me. I saw them clearly because I had once been exactly where they stood. One girl told me they say I can't do it, that I'm too poor, too weak. I looked at her and said, then prove them wrong. Make them regret ever saying that. She smiled through her tears, and I knew she would do something amazing. That moment reminded me why I started, why I still continued. We created Noah's Fund, a program that helped dreamers with zero money. They didn't need perfect grades, just passion, honesty, and a real story. We gave them tools, mentors, hope, and more importantly, time and space to grow. Some became teachers, others became artists, and some just found peace in trying. But not all stories had happy endings. Some kids disappeared, gave up, got tired. I cried for them too. I lit a candle for each name, remembered them in silence, because sometimes hope is not enough and pain is just too heavy. But even then, I never judged, never blamed. I just stayed ready. In case they returned, people often said you're different, Noah. You're too soft, too emotional. And I said, that's my power. I feel I remember. I never forget where I came from. I wasn't building a business. I was building a movement, a legacy, a message. That love, when mixed with pain, becomes something unbreakable. My mom grew older, her steps slower, her hands thinner, but her smile stronger. She still called me every morning just to say, drink water, eat something. And I still listened like a little boy because I knew I was still her little boy. She once said, you gave me a new life. And I replied, you gave me mine first. We took a trip once, just the two of us, to a city she always wanted to see. She stood near the sea, looked at the water, and said, it's bigger than I imagined. I said, just like life, Mom, just like the dreams you never thought I'd catch. She held my hand and spoke. You're my dream, Noah, and I caught you. In that moment, I felt more than success. I felt fullness, like my heart was a sky. No trophies, no awards, no interviews could match the weight of her words. She gave me everything without asking for anything, and I finally gave back. Not in money, not in fame, but in peace and rest. In her final happy years, I started writing letters to the younger me, Noah, the boy who sat alone. I told him it will hurt a lot, but you'll survive and you'll shine, I said. People will laugh. Life will slap you, but you'll get up every time. And I ended every letter with the same words. You're enough always. Sometimes I shared those letters with kids in workshops. They cried, they laughed, they asked, "How did you know how we feel?" And I answered, because I am you. I still am, just with more years. That connection, that honesty, it built bridges, strong and real. People ask, "What's your biggest success?" And I always say the ones I helped fly. Not the money, not the buildings, not the projects, but the people. The ones who believed again, stood up again, smiled again because I said one kind word. That's what matters. What lasts, what goes beyond time. Now I sit here, older, wiser, and full of quiet peace. I still walk the same streets, still hear my name in small voices. The world kept moving, but I stayed true to the boy I once was. I still carry him with me in every step, every breath, every word I speak. My journey was never about becoming rich or famous or strong. It was about making sure no one feels alone, forgotten, or left behind. It was about telling every poor kid, every silent dreamer, you matter because I mattered once, because someone believed in me once. I am Noah. I came from nothing but hope and my mother's love. I was laughed at, ignored, broken, but I stood up again. And now I give back, not because I have much, but because I remember. And I always will, because some stories are too important to forget.